We talked about previously how our culture views masculinity in a very toxic, unhealthy, damaging to not just men, but to women as well. What would happen if men actually rejected toxic masculinity, alpha dog, red pill manosphere beliefs about masculinity, including the toxic masculinity found in the Bible or in religion? Being a woman would be so much easier. There wouldn't be female expectations that are toxic. We would live in a society that loves individualism. We would accept women who can or don't want kids. We would value women for what they bring to the table and not what we can get from them. We would live in a society where women could be leaders. They could rule and govern, and men wouldn't feel intimidated. Because healthy masculinity applauds and protects and supports women when they're in charge. Because they're qualified and experienced, not because of their gender. We would live in a society if men had healthy masculinity, where men wouldn't always seek to be in charge. They would work together with the most qualified, regardless of who that person turns out to be. There would be less femicide, less murder, less domestic violence. There would be more of a healthy interaction between children and adults. Girls wouldn't have to grow up where their father is gone, and boys would learn and see demonstrated on a daily or monthly basis, depending on the marital status of their parents. They would see positive, consistent, masculine, healthy behavior demonstrated in their homes. And if there isn't consistent, healthy, untoxic masculinity around, then that sets up all the other toxic orientational stereotypes. If the people who are consistently in charge, cis heterosexual men, usually of white descent, if those people aren't consistently in a healthy, non-toxic way exist, that would set all the other groups usually on a better path. If you elect a president or a prime minister who views women, gays, and ethnicities and minorities with equal respect like they do with white people, there would be less racism. If you elect a U.S. president that views women as pigs and transactional bodies, racism and sexism and femicide will increase, which it has since we've elected Trump, which is terrible. There's more than one way for a woman to be a woman, and you don't even have to be biologically a woman to be a woman. Get that through your thick head, J.K. Rowling. Women aren't women because they're sensitive, caring, maternal, loving, and vulnerable. Those are human traits. Those are not female traits. And those traits are not valued consistently by men of toxic masculinity. Because if any man acted in a way that women usually act, they would call those men gay. Because toxic masculinity despises femininity. They'll screw it, they'll marry it, they'll kill it, but they will never act like women. And that's such a loss. Women would be safer and feel safer if men weren't so emotionally avoidant. There's a reason why narcissism is found in more men than women. And borderline personality is more found in women than men. Because our society has created a need of validation more in women and egocentrism in men. And if men can't live up to what their expectations are, they're either miserable or they end their life, which middle-aged men are the group that has the highest stats of suicidal or successful suicidal endings, which is tragic. Women should not be shamed if they act on traditionally masculine behavior. If they like to pursue something, if they're independent, loud, abrasive, opinionated, emotional. Most of those terms are what we would call masculine, but they're not. They're human traits. And yet, female traits are considered by half of the men in America to be lesser human traits, which is terrifying. And until men are as comfortable showing the traits we have toxically assigned to women as they value the traits that they act out associated with masculinity, we're never going to achieve any form of racial or gender equality. In religion, women are told that your job is to feed, clean, and care, while men's jobs are to lead, rule, discipline, and pursue, and to humiliate. And it's so toxic. Masculinity and femininity and secular and religious culture is so toxic that if you showed what a healthy masculine person who identifies as male or a healthy, mature, green flag person who identifies as female, most of the population probably wouldn't find them exciting. That's why women find red flag men interesting, while men look for women who are play bunnies. And it's tragic. Our society shapes what we find attractive, what we feel is acceptable to behave or to pursue. Women dumb themselves down to be attractive to men. Never lessen who you are for anyone. Because a good friend or a good partner wouldn't want you to. They would be horrified if they found out that you killed off or hide the best versions of yourself. But our society doesn't want women to act like men because that's a threat. And men don't want men to act like women because then you're gay. Which couldn't be further from the truth. Men who act on traits that are considered feminine, they're not, but society sees it that way, are actually in touch with their feelings. They're more in tune with their needs, their desires. Usually they are safer men to be around. Women who take on traits associated with masculinity, in my opinion, are more interesting. Independent women, women who don't take crap from anyone, who are opinionated, who speak out and advocate for themselves. I find that more attractive and sexually appealing than a submissive, silent woman. Because it is. Men like certain things because it works in their favor. They villainize and see things as threats when they do rock the gender roles. Gender is a social construct. It's not a religious one. It's not a legal one. It's a social construct. And our president right now has shown everyone multiple times that he hates femininity. He won't even respect it enough not to touch it without consent. He won't let trans people have passports with their legal, acceptable gender on it. Not the gender they were born with, but the gender they identify as. Women deserve better. Men deserve better. And everyone in between that doesn't identify as a traditional toxic version of gender deserves better. Personally, our society would be leaps and bounds more progressive if we just reject gender altogether. Gender has caused the deaths of millions of women. Assault, trafficking, humiliation. I mean, good gravy. We regulate women's reproductive skill or inadequacies so men don't feel threatened by a woman who says no. We have to have systems and registries in our country because men won't control themselves. Women should be safe. And if men get upset because they've started a domestic violence registry in Tennessee because they think it will hurt men while not even discussing how women die because there isn't one, they tell on themselves. They tell on themselves. Women don't have to have kids. They don't have to be a wife or a mother. If they want to and they have a passion, great. If you don't, that's great too. Just remember, in history class, the people who don't conform and who are unlike anyone else are the people who are remembered in history class, not the people who do nothing out of the ordinary. And our country, our society, despises feminism because anyone who isn't feminine by birth, anyone who isn't feminine by birth, who even hints at acting or behaving feminine, is completely stripped of dignity and human value. The only thing keeping the men of this country from selling women is because there are consequences. The Bible records women being treated in ways that are so bad, I don't even want to think about it. But I'm not taking morality tips from a Bible that tells fathers what is the legal way to sell your daughters into sexual slavery. Womanhood is a social construction. And any God that says you're not a good woman unless you make yourself less for a man is a man-made, invisible God that doesn't exist. Atheism taught me I don't have to be any man's version of what I should be. Be the best version of who you really are. And if anyone can't handle it or doesn't want to deal with it, I just flip them off. It's the best way to handle bigotry. And I just don't like the gender social construct. It's never done women any favors, and it's only done more positive things for men, even though the patriarchy, masculinity of toxic nature damages men and it damages relationships. The battle of the sexes only exists because men see anything that threatens their privilege as a threat, instead of seeing people who are different as an asset. In 200 years, what we consider gender roles right now will be different. The way we celebrate holidays 200 years ago was very different to today. Hopefully, I've heard it's going to take about 300 years for women to gain equality. And then many generations of men are going to feel oppressed because when you're used to privilege, giving women value and equality will feel like oppression to these people.